All right, welcome. I just want to discuss what the potential lines of the Boston Bruins would be should David Krejci make his return to Boston. I have two scenarios here. One has Krejci as the second line center. One has him as the third line center. And we'll dive into, kind of the particulars of what that brings. But Krejci spent last year in a Czech league, a Czech professional league. He did not play in the NHL. He's 36, so he's aged a bit. He's played a different style of hockey in the Czech league than the NHL typically plays. So there'll probably be an adjustment period for Krejci to kind of readjust the NHL game. It should be interesting, but he could return to second line center form. He might be a third line center at this point in his career. Regardless, I think the acquisition of Krejci adds a lot of potential and different options for Jim Montgomery, the new Bruins head coach, to change lines and find different chemistry pairings. So it's intriguing. So we'll start out with Krejci as a second line center. It's pretty much going to look, the top six is identical to like a year and a half ago when the Boston Bruins acquired Taylor Hall from the Buffalo Sabres. You have Marchand, Bergeron, Pastrnak on that first line. You'll have Hall, Krejci, and Craig Smith on that second line. We'll see what Craig Smith brings. He had a pretty brutal last year, but when he was on the second line with Krejci and Hall, he looked fantastic. So we'll see if he can get back to that. I don't think, in my eyes, when this line assembled, not this past season, but the season before when Taylor Hall came over, they were one of the most productive lines in the NHL, and it was fun to watch. I think there's a lot more question marks if they can replicate that, and they probably won't be, but I think they'll still be very good. It should be interesting. So that kind of leaves you in a situation with, regardless, you're going to have an extra center, and what do you do with that center? Do you have either Coyle or Haula become a fourth line center and move Nosek to the wing, or do you move Haula or Coyle to the wing on the fourth line, or do you bring Frederick down to the fourth line and have like a Haula and Coyle on a line? Going back to the Minnesota Wild days, Haula and Coyle, when they played together, didn't have a whole lot of chemistry. It's kind of like Coyle and Niederreiter. They played on a line for quite a bit. They didn't have any chemistry. Haula and Niederreiter had chemistry, but regardless, getting a little off topic. So I think you're going to have to choose between centermen, and you need to trade some money out. So we're not even getting into the money yet of how to bring back Krejci and Bergeron. So Frederick, I don't really see anyone except Oscar Steen threatening that position, but then you'd have to swap wings for at least one of the players, if not two. DeBrusk, he plays like he should be a top six winger. We'll see what happens. He might get bumped up to the second line and swapped with Craig Smith throughout the season. We'll see. We'll see how well Krejci and Smith mesh together. But I think for the most part, the fourth line, it's Foligno, Nosek, and probably Steen. You might see Frederick on that fourth line too. We'll see what happens. But essentially, this is the issue, Haula and Coyle. I think Coyle is the better third line center for the Boston Bruins team. I think Haula is the better second line center for this Boston Bruins team. But keeping Haula is financially more attractive for the Bruins than to keep Charlie Coyle. Haula only has 1 year left. He's on a cheaper contract in the $2 million. Coyle's contract extends for like four or 5 years, something like that. And his annual average value is $5.25 million, which is a significant difference and more than you should be paying a third line center. So I think the Coyle's contract will be a lot harder to move, but it's the contract they should be moving. Should you go back to this, even if Krejci doesn't re-sign for whatever, you still have an issue where you need a top two centerman, and that's with Bergeron. Once Bergeron leaves, then you need both. You need both two top line centermen, top six centers. Haula and Coyle don't give you that. It's just that simple. Haula can fill in for the second line center, but you need somebody more permanent than a temporary solution. So this is with Krejci being a third line center, essentially, should he come back. Then the Bruins have 3 third line centers. You can make a case for Nosek too, being a third line center. We're not diving into that. So this looks very similar to last season. This is where you get the most production out of your lines. Marchand, Bergeron, DeBrusk on that first line. Hall, Haula, and Pastrnak on that second line. The third line, I'm sure we'll see Krejci paired up with Craig Smith. They seem to have had chemistry throughout the last... I guess they only really played 1 year together, right? 1 year. But they seem to have chemistry when they played together. It was just about finding that other winger. When they brought in Taylor Hall, it looked great. But should that production drop significantly, which it very well may have, we'll probably see Krejci on the third line with probably Trent Frederick, and we might see Oscar Steen rotate into this mix somewhere. Maybe Steen and Frederick swap. We'll see, but I think the fourth line is pretty much going to be the same regardless. I don't see much changes to that. This is going to be tough, though. It's going to be tough to bring back Krejci, first off, and Patrice Bergeron. The Bruins only have $2.38 million in cap space. That's not a lot, especially this when you still need to sign your top two centers. It's not a lot. They're not both going to come back on $1 million contracts. They're just not, and I think it would be disrespectful to offer both of those players who have meant so much to the organization and are still highly productive, those type of contracts, right? Bergeron, Selke winner, Krejci, just a massive points producer over the seasons for the Bruins. 1 year removed from a great season in a Bruins uniform. Played professional hockey last year. It's not like he took a sabbatical. Coming off a $7.2 million contract, Krejci was. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. The cap situation is going to get interesting. If you trade out Coyle, that helps. That $2.38 million rises to, what is it, like about, rises. Man, math is hard right now. Rises about $5-6 million, so to about $9 million. And then is $4.5 million enough to sign both of those guys? Hopefully, you hope so. Maybe you sign Bergeron to $5 million and Krejci to $4 million, or it's still gonna get hairy. They still have a lot of dead cap on their defensive side. They need to shed. They need to figure out some type of solution. That could be a solution, but a lot of those contracts are going to be hard to move. So it's I don't know how realistic it is to bring back Bergeron and Krejci. I think it delays Don Sweeney from having to address the second line center issue, or first line center should Bergeron decide to retire at the end of next year. They're not going to have a first line center or a second line center. We're really close to Bergeron and Krejci just retiring from hockey. Not many years out. They're both older NHL players. It's going to be an issue that the Bruins need to figure out. But I think for this upcoming season, the addition of Krejci adds a lot of depth and different dimensions you can kind of get out of this team. Potential chemistry, scoring, and all that fun stuff. I think it's intriguing. I kind of like it, but I think Don Sweeney still needs to figure out who's going to replace these guys. We've had the same issue since 2015, for the most part, right? We haven't developed any centers. There's no centers. We spent, 5.5 years looking for a winger for Krejci. It's just, it's getting to that point where it's a lot of patchwork, and you need to start thinking about the future. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of dead cap, a lot of voids, and full rebuild mode for the Bruins. I think the Krejci thing for Don Sweeney is a nice Band-Aid and helps him keep his job for a little longer. It's not the solution. It's a temporary solution for maybe a year or two. We'll see how long Krejci plays. But it's not a solution for the future. So it's intriguing. I love David Krejci. I'm excited. I hope he comes back to Boston. I love watching him. He's a great player. He's fun to watch. He's one of the best in, I'd probably say underrated league-wide in terms of being one of the better playmakers in the NHL for the past decade and a half. He's great with the puck. So we'll see what happens. Love to see Krejci. Love to see Bergeron back. Love to see Don Sweeney do something. Kind of manage the cap a little better. Figure out what we're doing with the contracts. Excited to see Jim Montgomery try to finagle these lines. I think you can get very interesting. You can make some interesting lines. So we'll see. What do you guys think about Krejci coming back? What do you think? You think Bergeron? I mean, reports say Bergeron is going to come back, but how is this going to happen with the cap space that the Bruins don't have? Do they have to pick one? And if so, is it Bergeron? And if so, is $2.38 million for Bergeron enough to bring him back? Or does another team call him? Like, I don't know. Maybe like, dude, I don't even know. 'Cause he's from Quebec, right? And he's not going to go be a Montreal Canadian. He's not going to play within the division, most likely. He's not going to go to a rival. Do we see him do like a West Coast thing? Maybe go to Seattle for a year. Seattle pays him like $6-7 million for a year. We'll see. But that $6-7 million that another team may offer Bergeron is going to be a lot more enticing to take rather than the $2.38 million Boston can offer him. It's over twice the amount. Who knows? I think at that point Bergeron will just decide to retire. I think he's waiting to figure out Sweeney in the cap space. As is Krejci. I think they're going to come to a number, and then Sweeney's going to have to clear up the cap space, and then they're going to be able to sign Krejci and Bergeron. And if that doesn't happen, I wouldn't expect either of those players to come back, or just one of those players. So we'll see. It's still early. I'm just excited. I love Krejci. I'd love to have him back in a Bruins uniform. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.